So welcome to this petition delivery event. Tēnā koutou, and welcome to the speakers and people watching. My name is Elliot Pryor. I am from Action Station, and we're here to support the petition delivery by Jane Little and Jake Benge for a living wage for essential workers. Just on the Zoom, so I'm being helped by Cassie from Action Station as well. So she might mute you or unmute you if you're having trouble, and she'll be in the chat. So if you have any technical issues, or if you have a question, please use the chat as well, and you can talk to each other. We're aiming to do this in 15 to 20 minutes, but if we have time, we can take questions at the end. And yeah, just to say a little bit about what we're doing. So usually for a petition delivery, we would be on the steps of Parliament, and it would be a outside event, and we'd be able to shake hands. This is the digital version, but it's still just as functional. So the petition, so Jan Logie from the Green Party is an MP, and she will be able to present it officially to Parliament. And just, yeah, Action Station. We support community campaigns that meet the vision of Action Station. So our mission is to support everyday New Zealanders to act together in powerful ways to create what we can't achieve on our own, a society, economy and democracy that serves all of us, everyday people, and the planet that we love. One of our visions is of a community, of a Aotearoa with equality and fairness in place, and as part of that, everyone should have enough to live on. So that's why we're supporting this petition. And so we have the petition starters who are going to speak. We have somebody who is working in a supermarket who will speak, and Tali Williams from First Union to speak as well. So I'm going to invite Jake to introduce your petition.
So the petition is asking for our living wage for essential workers. I think the lockdown, sort of COVID-19, really showed how important they are to society. I mean, someone who like puts food on our shelves shouldn't struggle to put food on their table. I think is a great way of looking at it. I don't really have much to say about it because I genuinely just think it's very straightforward. You should get paid properly, and you should be able to afford to live a healthy life. And yeah, I don't really need to elaborate on that too much. I guess working sort of in that industry myself, at one point, I imagine the amount of stress that they're going through right now, because it's already quite a stressful job, and then add on COVID-19 restrictions, and yeah, so I just think that they deserve a better wage, a better, fairer wage. Thanks.
Thanks, Jake. And I'll pass to you, Jane.
Thank you, Elliot. So absolutely agree with everything Jake said. And I joined this campaign shortly after the lockdown started, when it became really obvious just how important our essential workers are. These are people like Jackie, who'll talk next, who worked tirelessly in difficult circumstances so we could stay safe at home. And I really also wanted to do something to acknowledge not only supermarket workers, but drivers, factory workers, cleaners, healthcare workers, and so many other people that are often invisible, but keep us running. And many of whom are in insecure jobs, and they're not paid a wage that fairly recognises the work they do. To me, it's really important that we pay workers fairly so they can live well and look after their families. And especially after the lockdown, when it all became very clear, I think it's the least we can do. For me, I cannot thank everyone enough who left their homes during the lockdown. New Zealand is where it is today because of their work, and my family were able to stay home because of this work. I think the budget yesterday missed an opportunity to ensure essential workers are guaranteed a decent wage. But I hope that this petition, signed by over 10,000 people, will encourage this to change in the in the current weeks. And I look forward to seeing more of Jan's work on this. So to summarise, just thank you to everyone who worked during the lockdown. It's made a huge difference, and I support you in any requirement to have a living wage. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jan. Yeah, and just to clarify, well, just as you said, Jane, so Jane and Jake have been leading the petition, and it has been supported by over 10,100 people today. So it's on behalf of those people too. We're joined by Jackie, who has been working as an essential worker for the lockdown, and I'll invite you to speak, Jackie.
That there are so many essential workers we just don't know about. And we had an opportunity to meet many of those as we, checked their, items through. And they all have the same story that I'm going to tell you now, that, the living wage is just it is just the minimum what these people should be getting for the job that they're doing. But for us, I just want to speak of just two of the levels, level 4, where our stress levels were extremely high as we were dealing with the unknown. And we had this huge influx of customers who were as nervous as we were, but who took that out on us. And we were with verbal abuse and even physical gestures, and it was extremely hard. And we were seriously, genuinely afraid, and the fear was and still is very real. We have worked 9 or more hours a day and most weekends, and have had to keep those fears bottled up. And we were not given a choice. That's the whole thing. We weren't given the choice because we were well, and so we had to do it. So we were constantly afraid that we would take this virus home to our families, and that we had to deal with the guilt that was associated with that as well, because it's, it's not just taking it home, it's the guilt that somebody you love could get it as well. So our teams have worked tirelessly to meet the needs and often the demands of our customers without meeting our own needs. And I am very certain that there will be many who will hit the wall at some point because of the constant pressure that has been our life for the last 10 weeks, probably. We do have strong teams. We do look after each other, but someone needs to look after us because it was really tough. As we moved into level 3, I do have to say that there were some positive things that came through. Every level seems to bring its own like levels of abuse and people swinging their arms at you. And it is getting worse again as we entered level 2, because people think they can be free and they don't want to follow the rules of, the supermarkets. But some of our positive feedback was that some of our customers, generally most of our customers, realize what service our essential workers are giving to our communities. And they are astounded that we are not on the living wage. And I have to say for myself, 18 years and I'm still not on the living wage, and that's pretty difficult to swallow. So most of them were in utter disbelief, and many of them have actually supported us by going onto social media and bringing that out as well. So many of my customers went on social media right away and could not, and said that they couldn't believe we weren't on the living wage. So as we enter level 2, we have our own difficulties just like everybody else. But I think all essential workers so deserve the minimum living wage, the minimum.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I'm going to pass to Tali Williams from First Union.
Kia ora koutou, and I just want to acknowledge Jackie for her words. Thanks, Jackie. I'm Tali from First Union. We're a union of 30,000 workers, and we have a number of essential workers who are our members, including bus drivers, supermarket workers, paramedics, and freight and courier workers. If you're essential enough to work during a pandemic, you are essential enough to be on a living wage. It's interesting that those paid astronomically high salaries out there in the world are not the ones we've desperately needed in this time of crisis. Communities are finally understanding the value of the actual essential workers, the ones who up to now have been synonymous with low wages, who put themselves at risk to get us where we needed to go, to keep our pantries stocked and our people fed during the crisis. It's taken a pandemic to recognise these people are essential, but that's what they've always been, and it's the reason we fight for living wages. A year and a half ago, our union launched the Worth It campaign, and we've been successful in achieving living wages for many retail workers, including those at Kmart and the warehouse. One of our biggest battles was with Countdown, of course, have a number of essential workers. After months and months of bargaining and industrial action, members achieved a living wage from this September for those with 12 months or more service. While there's a plan for Countdown, the franchising model used by Foodstuffs, who own Pack and Save and New Worlds, has traditionally made it very difficult to achieve consistent wages and conditions across the country. So while we praise the supermarkets for their 10% bonus, which they put in place for level 4, to recognise the extra being asked of supermarket workers, we obviously had concerns that the pay rise was just a temporary measure when those workers are worth a living wage in any context. Many supermarket supply chain workers start on a minimum wage and remain on it or scarcely above it, starting with fruit pickers, moving on to food processing, truck drivers, right through to where you buy the food at the supermarket. Many of these workers are on about $1.50 to $2 less than the living wage. We've fought a living wage campaign for bus drivers for years, and we've achieved those living wages in Tauranga and Hamilton after public campaigning and industrial action, but that needs to be a nationwide thing. We've had living wage battles with many essential industry employers, and our wins have come about through workers organising, public campaigning and industrial action. The truth of the matter is, the higher the union membership, the better the wages we've achieved. We will keep on fighting, but we need the government and employers to come to the table and play their role. Unions and campaigners have consistently called for fair pay agreements, particularly in supermarkets and other big retailers at a time like this. It would have been very useful to be able to set wage rates and conditions across the entire sector and not just rely on the goodwill of individual employers. While we endorse calling on the government to do what it can to support fair pay agreements or any measures that support living wages for essential workers, we also call on all employers engaging essential workers during the lockdown to, at minimum, pay their staff a living wage and make it permanent. If your work is important enough that society will collapse into chaos without you, you deserve to be paid accordingly. We shouldn't have needed a coronavirus pandemic to show us that, but it's blindingly obvious now. Thanks and thank you very much for those who started this petition and Action Station. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you so much, Tali, for those words. We're going to ask Jan Logie to speak to accept the petition, and just before we do that, we're going to do some technical magic to send you the petition. So bear with me. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to ask Cassie if you could unmute everybody. We're going to try a countdown. So this email is to you, Jan, and to your office. It is the petition as PDFs. And if you can join me, 3, 2, 1. Send.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
And Jan, I'll invite you to speak to accept the petition.
Kia ora koutou. And I should look on my phone and see the petition having arrived. Let me just see that. Yes, there it is. Thank you all, and to particularly the organisers, but also the 10,106 New Zealanders who put their names to this petition. I really want to acknowledge everyone's sentiment, and it's one I 100% share. And want to start by acknowledging and thanking all of the essential workers as well. My first speech in Parliament after coming back was to do that, because we have, it feels like a debt to pay to people who have really put themselves on the line for our communities and our country, and I really believe we need to do something to repay that debt, and of course acknowledging, as others have said, that this has just highlighted the essential role that everyone has been playing in our communities forever. And that this is fundamentally about righting a pretty deeply embedded wrong, because it just doesn't serve us as a collective when people are going and contributing to their communities and going home really stressed and worried about being able to have enough money to meet the basics. As a whole country, we suffer when that's the reality, and it is a reality for far too many people. And really, I wanted to acknowledge what Jackie was saying about being at that front line, and some of the seeing, like, I think that sense of the customers and kind of sentiment about acknowledging and being shocked that you're not getting the living wage, and that feels to me like that is the dominant sentiment. And also you've had to experience a lot of us at our worst as people's fear and anxiety has amped up, and while you've held that fear and gone to work to serve us, not all of us have managed to hold that fear. And you've paid that toll. And I also just want to acknowledge too, it was really poignant for me to be reminded of that many of the clusters for us have either been around schools or rest homes, and that in those rest home workers we have the cleaners and we have the cooks and we have other staff who are again on minimum or just above wages, unseen, at absolute points of high risk of exposure, who were turning up to make sure that our grandparents or parents were able to be looked after when other New Zealanders and family members weren't able to get there. We owe them an acknowledgement for that work, and for me and for the Greens, the appropriate acknowledgement is better working conditions and a living wage. We kind of expect it as the minimum in our country for all of us, and this is our opportunity as we talk about resetting and not just going back to normal, because normal wasn't working. So thank you all, and we will take this petition and present it to Parliament, and then there'll be that opportunity to hopefully speak to a select committee and find other ways for moving this forward. So the Greens have also been putting out around promoting getting the fair pay legislation in as a vehicle for that, and also to make sure that government, when we're paying or when we're holding the money that is used for people's wages, that we make sure that that money is going towards the minimum of a living wage, because that's easily within our control. And we've been saying that that needs to be a priority in the coming months. So thank you all.
Thank you, Jan. And yeah, I think that was a question on people's minds about what is happening in Parliament already, and what chances there are of it happening through government.
That we will find out through our collective conversations. We've raised this, and we don't know yet. So we will keep having the conversations, and And those conversations are always stronger when they are echoed strongly from in the community.
Thank you. I have one question for Jackie, if you're still there, Jackie. If you, is it useful for customers to ask their local supermarkets to pay the living wage, do you think?
I think so. And there was that push to do it as well. Every time I saw something on Facebook that was sort of leaned that way, I would share it as many times as I could. And so many people got on to say that it was just appalling that we aren't already on the living wage. Yeah. I think any community would get in behind it.
Awesome. We're coming to the end of the event. I just want to open for any last comment from any of the speakers or guests. No? So thank you, everybody. Thank you to the speakers. So thank you, Jan, for accepting the petition. Thank you, Jackie, for talking about your experience. Thank you, Tali, for your campaigning. Thank you, Jane and Jack, for your campaigning as well. And thank you, everyone, for watching. One final thing, if I can ask if we can take a group photo. So usually on Parliament steps, we would, doesn't matter how many people there are, we'll take a photo as a record of the event. And maybe just to mark it, we can just wave, or just to show that we're here. And I'll count down so I can do the screenshot. 3, 2, 1. Yay. And the crowd goes wild. Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.